But if he actually goes a field, then does a field study, right, and goes out and goes into the exchange houses, and he asks, "Hey, I have some Lebanese lira. Can I buy some dollars?" And well, okay, I guess they are having a hard time selling the dollar back to you, or if they do, the price difference between what they buy and what they sell is so huge that tells him, that tells us that the people who are actually changing the money are not falling for the media tricks or for the government tricks. Hi everyone, this is Arpad from Starpath Academy, and today I want to talk a little bit about the Lebanon boiling interview series that I recently did with a gentleman named Ali from Lebanon, where he gave us intricate details into life under hyperinflation in Lebanon currently and what is going on after Lebanon has experienced its hyperinflation since October 17, 2019. So we finished that interview and there was a lot of information shared there. And I thought maybe we could spend a couple of minutes to recap that and try to distill some knowledge out of that, distill some wisdom out of all the knowledge that he shared with us. So if you haven't seen those videos, then I encourage you to take a look at the description of this video. You will find the series there, the full 5 videos. So please go and watch them all, and then come back and watch this video as well. However, there are a lot of details shared there that I won't be able to go into, and it's through his words, so I think that is very important. Ali, if you're listening, I want to thank you again for being part of that interview and sharing all that knowledge with us. I know it must have been difficult for you, so thank you very much, and I would love to have you on the channel some more. Now, here I have papers upon papers of notes from those, and there is just a lot, and we won't be able to consume it all, but let's just recap some basic ideas. So hopefully in the next live video or something like that, you guys have questions, and then I can probably answer them, or we can have Ali on and have him answer it as well. So let's get to the meat of the things, right? So the Lebanese lira, there was a fix, basically a peg to the dollar, right? And it was around 1,500 Lebanese liras to $1, and the cost of things were pretty much the same, and in the sense that the peg was true when you kind of went into stores to buy stuff, right? And it was people were using it interchangeably when trusted it. Now he later tells us that in the banking system, Lebanese liras were treated differently, and there was a lot of interest paid on Lebanese liras. So technically, the government or the banking system still wanted you to store your money in Lebanese liras, but people on the street were using it interchangeably. Sometimes you would pay in dollars, you would get Lebanese liras as change or something like that. So that's a very important note, because that was something that was very they were accommodated to that, right? Now on, and he starts that people wake up, right? That's how he starts it, that people wake up one morning and there are protests going on, right? And that was caused by the slight lack of dollar supply in the system, which temporarily broke the peg, right? That was the idea, that okay, it broke the peg and the dollar went from 1,500 to 1,800, and now suddenly people felt that there was some issues here, and then from there on, and the Lebanese lira started depreciating, inflation started happening, not necessarily to the dollar, but the dollar was gaining value compared to the Lebanese lira. And Then the protest grew and grew to the point where the government and the banking sector said, oh my God, there's a safety issue. We need to close the banks, right? Everybody needs to close the banks for 2 weeks. And basically that was it. All the banks closed, ATMs and everything completely, and lo and behold, right after 2 weeks when they open, the ATMs are no longer working. And if they're working, they're allowing you to take out money, roughly $50 per week. And you have to have a good explanation why you're taking that money out and so on. So, of course, that just made things further worse, but that was the thing that happened at that point. It was clear to everyone that something has happened, right? But it's very important to note here that people woke up to some protests, right? And that is maybe if you saw it on television or something like that. So eventually, of course, the devaluation got further and further worse because people now lost the trust in the Lebanese lira, and they wanted dollars, right? They wanted dollars for their Lebanese lira, or they even had dollars in the system, but that was stuck in the system. And later on, even that $50 per week limit was just taken away, and all the dollars. And he tells us in later videos that even that was taken away, and your dollars would be locked up into a savings account for 2 years, right? And they call those lollers, and we'll get into that. We'll get into those a little bit, but basically, the dollars has split in two: digital dollars stuck in the Lebanese banking system, and cash US dollars that you had in your pocket or something like that, or stored somewhere else. And anyway, so the black market appeared. Well, black market, I mean, it's just people trading different currencies. That was the case in Romania as well. Friends would trade currencies. If somebody was working for one currency, they need a different thing. People would trade, but there are these people who are, that's their profession. That they're just trading currencies, right? Or currency houses, currency trading houses. You can still see them in Eastern Europe. We have a lot of them where you would go and you would just trade your currency. So that they call it black market, but it's really the actual market, right? The market determined value of the dollar. So that has went from 1,500 to eventually 10,000, and then from 10,000 up, spiked up to 20,000, right? So it took more and more liras to buy dollars, because it took more and more liras to buy actual produce, actual stuff that you would need. But the dollar cost was pretty much the same when you were buying products with your dollars. Right. So that's the actual price of dollars. But if you take a look at Google, or if you take a look at, the government pages, they actually still think that, the peg is intact. There's nothing to talk about here, because if you go into the bank and you bring in dollars, that's what they, give you, 1,500. Of course, you would have to be dumb to do that, but the facade is still kept, that the peg is still working. At some point, even they kind of had to change that, and they came up with a different system how to measure currency based on what is being used, because a lot of subsidies came in. And then you have these different system where it's dollars that were put in the bank after October 17, 2019. Those are traded with the bank at 3,500. Then there are subsidized dollars that are used by the bakers and some other industries, food industry or something like that, and they subsidize dollars there for like $5,000, 5,000 liras per $1, and so on. So suddenly, the banking system comes up with these schemes and subsidies to solve problems for the short run, but also he mentioned that this turns groups of people against each other, right? Because for students it's a different price, for bakers it's a different price. If you're sending dollars abroad, then it's a different price. But your actual dollars that you saved all your life, right? If you're saving cash for your retirement, that's back to 1,500. So basically, you lost, somewhere around 85, 90% of your purchasing power, right? So your goods, and as he tells us later, if you had $100,000 worth of currency in the bank, eventually that became like something like around 5,000, 7,500 $1,000 worth of currency became $5,000 worth of currency. So that's a loss of purchasing power, right? It's it's huge. Anyway, so that means if you thought you were safe for a couple of years, right, and you would not have to work and you can just live off of that, cash, suddenly that evaporated, and then now you were back for having cash only for a month or two. So imagine happening that happening to your 401k or whatever cash savings you have in a bank. It's absolutely horrible what they are going through. Right, and then he tells us, of course, about all the calamities that this brought, from rolling blackouts because the government and the authorities are trying to save on energy costs, and then they have sometimes just 3 hours worth of electricity, and then the free market steps in, and you have these generator companies who are generating electricity from gasoline, and they are distributing it, but then now even they are having trouble because there are gasoline shortages, and then there's gasoline that is being subsidized, and there are huge lines, and they have to stay in the line for gasoline for hours upon hours, sometimes multiple days, and the gas station doesn't open, and so on. So it's also absolutely horrible. It brings back memories from Romania in the 90s regarding gasoline. We had some issues, a lot, big issues, where people would stay in gas lines, but for days. But also people would steal gasoline from each other's car. Now he doesn't mention that. I'm just saying that this is a fact. What happened in Romania? So you could not keep gasoline in your car because people would either poke a hole in your tank or open the lid and put down a tube, and then just basically suck the gasoline out. So it was horrible, but people did it. So I'm not sure what's going on in Lebanon regarding that, but you can expect something like that happening. Right, now back to Lebanon. He says regarding food shortages that it's probably the easiest one to handle because there's a free market for that, and people are speculating a lot, but also are able to stock up and provide when there are spikes or when there are shortages. They are selling it back into the economy and so on. However, there's a lot of speculation, and then there are subsidized items, food items that they have, and that just brings in more chaos because now people are arguing on who gets the subsidized food items, who doesn't, and sometimes people buy up all the subsidized food items and they sell it back when all the subsidized ones are gone. And then he mentions like arguments and shootings even over subsidized milk or something like that. So then we go into the crime, and then we talk about how the crime went up. Objectively speaking, went up. Statistics is what they want to make it out, but clearly crime has went up. General aggression in people went up, but the society is still intact, so we're not seeing a complete breakdown of society. That was similar to Romania. We never went into a complete Mad Max scenario, how some other countries did. I think so. It has a lot to do with culture, to be honest, and looks like Lebanese are, holding it together. So nice people there, as much as they can, and they are helping each other out. But in some cases, in other countries, it has been much, much, much worse. But that still doesn't rule out the situation that people are using machine guns, as he put it, or automatic rifles to settle disputes. And that he describes an incident that happened right under the flat that he lives in, under the building that he lives in. So that has happened, and I'm not sure what the exact situation regarding firearms in Lebanon, but in Romania back in the 90s, where we lived, um, it was highly illegal for people to have firearms, but it was still there. A lot of people just had these AK-47, the Romanian Patriotic Guards AK-47, because they were conscripts or something like that. And when the collapse happened and the revolution happened, a lot of these firearm storages were raided, or actually firearms were sold into the black market by the higher ups in the military, and a lot of people just stole them. They broke into these military bases and took the firearms right out of it. Sometimes they were sold, sometimes they were broken. Just to bring it back to gasoline, my cousin was in the army during that time when the hyperinflation in Romania happened, and he was telling that they would find these huge trucks that they would have in the army, and by the morning, even sometimes they were guarded. They were either scared off or paid off. People with guns came onto the base and actually stole the gasoline right from the tank of the cars, and even some other tanks. They would poke holes and they would bring a couple of gallons or whatever they could take. They would just let the gasoline out. They would take a couple of gallons, or hundreds of gallons, as much as they can carry, take it off from the base, and the rest of the gasoline would be just pouring till morning out on the ground. So it was horrible. But just to kind of mention that whatever the situation regarding firearms is, people find ways, and you know things can get very chaotic and hectic, and yeah, use whatever words you want to use. You get the idea. Right, right. Another thing that is, of course, stealing is a big issue. People are stealing, from pickpocketing to other bigger issues happening, people stealing each other's property and so on. However, it's as he mentioned, it's not a complete full Mad Max situation. However, people are desperate. They have lost a lot, and they are still currently losing everything. And when they lose it, they lose it. He mentions about crypto. Now, crypto is not widely used in Lebanon. It was never really adopted that much because a lot of these countries are just traditional in the way how they do business. However, he does mention that a lot of mining came in when there were possibilities to mine cryptos and kind of make a couple of $100 here and there. And I'm sure that people are using cryptos in one way or another, but it's not generally used that you could go into a store and buy produce with cryptos. So that's something to note because let's see what happens right in the United States, in Europe, how well these cryptocurrencies get adopted into the system where your mom and pop store is taking it, or can you buy actual produce with it? Because the people that you're doing business with right now, most likely they will be the people that you will be doing business with during hyperinflation, right? So you have to know that people trust the currency to the last moment, you know, um, in the sense that that the government issued currency is used and will be used until it's completely dead. And that was the case even in Romania. People lost their faith. They would not store it, right? They would not accumulate it for even for a week or a couple of months. But when they were actually transacting, they were transacting in currency. And Right, regarding just the dollar amounts or quote unquote money stuck or currency stuck in the banking system, and then outside of the banking system, that dollars or lollars as he called it, which is sort of a fake crypto dollar amount that is stuck in the banking system and cannot be taken out as cash, is still being used, and sometimes it is used by merchants. You could use that. However, it has its own valuation basically. So he mentioned, $1,000 worth of produce, and that would be regular cash dollars that you would have. It would actually cost around $6,000 in this currency that is kept in the bank and can only circulate in the bank. So that actually gives us a very good comparison on numbers of what happened, right? So in his case, right, very unfortunate, but having around $75,000 worth of currency in the bank, right, that purchasing power turned into $5,000 worth of currency stuck in the bank, right? And he mentions that an iPhone, that is cash $1,000 is around $6,000 currency stuck in the bank. So there you go. You saved, $75,000, $80,000 worth of the currency, and you thought you could live off of that for 2 years or something like that, and you can't even buy one iPhone with it. So that's inflation for you, and that's not even really hyperinflation, because hyperinflation is just called the speed. If they measure the speed of it, it can take 2 years and it's not hyperinflation. But if the dollar were stuck in the bank, it can take 3 years, 4 years, whatever. You can't take it out. It's there. So it's just inflation. That's how it will be probably put down into Wikipedia when in 10 years or 20 years when people will be reading about this. So very unfortunate. So that was actually the first two parts of the video. If you're interested in my synthesis or analysis about, the three the third, fourth, and fifth part of the video, then subscribe to the channel, and we'll be talking about those too. Now, let's spend a couple of more minutes on, just distilling some wisdom out of this, right? Just distilling a little wisdom out of this, of the whole thing, analyzing all of this info from the first two videos, and having the time machine or going back or knowing what we know now, being in Lebanon in 2019, October 16, a day before everything happens, what would you do? And what were there indicators? Could you help other people or something like that? And there were indicators, but there was never really one big flashing sign that he mentions that this was it. He mentions that there were some opportunities to take dollars out or take cash out of the system at a reduced rate, like losing 15% of your money when there was the opportunity of the peg breaking from 1,500 to 1,800, or you had some opportunities, but by that time it really started, right? That was really, at that point, sort of the beginning of the end. Hopefully, if we go back a little bit back, or at least a couple of days before, that event, what would you do? Right? And immediately, of course, the one thing that he could have done, or anyone could have done, is take out the cash from the bank. However, that did not necessarily help throughout the years, right, or throughout the months that followed. Uh, Actually taking out the cash from the bank and turning it into foreign currency would have helped, right? Because the cash amount of foreign currency, that didn't change, right? So that kept its purchasing power. Now that plays into something interesting, which is you guys in the comment section pointed out, and I actually knew about this way back, but it has a nice name, and the name is milkshake theory. So milkshake theory, I will have a separate video if you guys want, but the basic idea is that the United States is the empire, or the center of the empire, and the Western world, or the world as we know it, that uses dollars as currency, or trade settlements, is the empire, right? And I told you this many times before, that kingdoms or countries are not like empires. Empires kind of fall from the edge. You know, the edges kind of break first, and then it shrinks until it reaches the center, and the center falls last, right? So that's why you have, you know, Roman emperors and so on fiddling while everything burns, even to the last day. You know, people were so in the belief system that it could never fall, that they were there until the last days, and then they suffered a lot. But anyway, milkshake theory is something where the center, right, the controller of the US dollar, the currency, the US dollar, is actually sucking in a lot of US dollars into the center. And all these countries are the edges of the empire that have maybe sometimes debt that is denominated in dollars, or they deal within each other in dollars. As the currency is being sucked back into the center, you know, there are deficiencies. There are dollars that are lacking from the system, and they are not having enough dollars. And these edges of the empire actually are suffering from a dollar deflation, right? And that's definitely happening in Lebanon. By deflation, I mean there's less to go around, right? That's why the value was actually, the peg was broken, right? And then in these countries, there's a dollar deflation happening, and but actually in the center, there's a dollar inflation happening, right? So because it's coming back in, it's coming back in towards the center, and people are spending it. Everything is getting expensive here, but dollars themselves are expensing somewhere else. So milkshake theory will, or you can, you know, there's a really good video on YouTube, but we can talk about it in a live video or something like that. However, that is something that I see happening in Lebanon and anywhere else where are, you know, bubbles popping, or name it how you want, is happening. So now regarding milkshake theory, that means that for them it would have been better to actually take out Lebanese liras, turn it into dollars, and just hold the dollars, and stepping back and let things unfold. And as things are unfolding, use those currency out of the system and step back in to purchase assets, right? And as things are hyperinflating or inflating in the local currency, then you are having a better purchasing power. And he mentions something very important about this in later videos again, that this became a cultural phenomenon, that just regular people who did not keep their money in the banking system actually became rich, in the sense that They still had the same amount of money, but now it would compare to your neighbor, you are very rich because his money is stuck in the bank, or his money was in Lebanese liras, right? And I keep telling Lebanese liras, but you have to understand, if you step back and universalize this idea, basically I'm saying his money was in the currency of the country, right? And his money was in the bank, and that was stuck. So compared to that, the neighbor who just had, a couple of thousands of dollars set aside somewhere in a bank deposit box. I don't know, to be honest, what happened to with bank deposit box, but let's just say it was outside of the system somewhere, or even in a foreign country, preferably. Then now he could step back and purchase some assets, because these assets are being sold now on the cheap by people who are suffering, unfortunately. And that happened in Romania as well, in my experience, when the bank got closed. So that tells us right there that, now you may say, having money outside the system, yes, that is a particular thing that they could have done. But generalizing it is basically not being in the herd. That's how I would say it, right? Because when the fleecing happens, right, of inflation or hyperinflation, it's always the herd that is getting fleeced, and you stepping outside of that, it's not for me. Yes, it might sound kooky or whatever that you think I'm doing right now. However, if you're not in the herd, then the fleecing that happens won't necessarily be as bad for you. And in comparison, you're actually getting rich from the perspective of others who are getting the haircut, right? So that's the first part, right? And then, of course, this means that not, yeah, not being in the system helps in these cases, right? So let's just put it that way. Now I'm not sure if it would make sense to, of course, hold $75,000 or something like that in cash. I think that would be crazy, but you can probably come up with some other ideas of what you should do, and you should never share in the comment section what you do. I'm just, internally think about things. But everything has its own risks, so I'm not advising that at all. However, maybe a couple of months worth of expenses, having in a safety deposit box or something like that, or at least outside of the banking system, could work for you, right? So that would be the first biggest lesson. The second biggest lesson is actually even dollars are inflating compared to. Hey, thank you for watching this introduction video to the full 50-minute analysis video that I did about the interview that I had with Ali from Lebanon. And if you're interested about my synthesis or my analysis and what I learned from him and from the Lebanese situation, and how I'm making some changes to my plans, then I would recommend you sign up to buymeacoffee.com/StarPathAcademy, become a member, and watch the full video there. If you're interested in watching the full interview series, then I will also have a link to that under the video in the description section. Thank you very much. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and make sure you share this information with your friends and family. Thank you very much. See you in the next video.